Hi there, this is Colleen Adrian, and I want to talk to you today about what you can do when your kids' emotions or behavior is really intense and it's really hard to hold steady through it. I started thinking about this over the last couple of weeks because it seems like when I'm on social media, I hear lots about what you need to do to raise emotionally healthy kids. You need to be there with them, spend time with them, sleep with them, allow them to express their feelings. We want to create secure attachment, not judge their behavior, focus on their needs. All of those things are really wonderful goals, and I agree with them. And they're also really, really hard if you're highly sensitive and if you didn't have that yourself when you were growing up. Okay. I don't feel like I'm hearing a lot in those spaces about how hard it is to hold steady through their intense feelings or through their difficult behavior, especially if you're a highly sensitive person yourself. And the feelings or the behavior and the intensity feel a little bit too much for you and your nervous system, and it's overwhelming you, right? Or the feelings are really intense. So, what happens then? What happens if you're barely hanging on? So, I just want to talk about some little steps that you can take to start to learn how to navigate that. Um, because it's not about either or, it's not about, okay, well, we just need to throw out those goals because they're impossible. And we're going to go back to just, trying to punish them or do whatever it takes to change their behavior. And it's also not about just completely overriding our feelings all the time and never paying any attention to our own feelings or our own needs. That's actually not very helpful either, although it may be. It may be an interim strategy, something that you do to avoid yelling at them in the meantime while you're learning a little bit more about how you can regulate yourself, but it's not a great long-term strategy. Because as long as you're not regulating that yourself, they're still going to be able to feel that. So eventually, it starts to get a little bit more difficult. But in the short term, when you're learning, sometimes that's the best you can do, and your best is your best. So let's just talk about this for a moment. How do you tolerate the intensity or the behavior, and how do you start learning to regulate myself or yourself? Um, just having a little peek at my notes here. I think one of my points in sharing about this is that I sometimes wonder if parents feel like in order to raise emotionally healthy kids, that they need to completely put their feelings on hold all the time and never have their own needs met or their own feelings understood. And that's not the case at all. You do need to have those needs met. And it's preferable to get those needs met with another adult so that you can still hold space for your kids. And if you were a highly sensitive person yourself and you didn't have somebody when you were growing up to attune to you and to hold steady while you expressed whatever emotions or feelings or whatever you needed to express authentically, you're just going to have a really hard time doing this without some help to learn. And that's not your fault, right? You just haven't learned yet. So here's a tip for you if this is what you're struggling with. Is there anything, if you sit down and reflect for a few moments, is there anything, maybe a practice, maybe a thought, maybe an activity, a person that you talk to, a good friend, your partner? Is there any activity or any of those things you can do that bring you even a little tiny bit of relief sometimes? Okay, so that's the first thing, is to start thinking about what your resources are, or what are the things that help to bring your nervous system down a little bit when you've been quite activated. And then my other tip around that is to get curious if you can. And you might not be able to do this during. If you can do this during the situation, great. If you don't have enough capacity to do that and you start to just kind of go right to being overactivated, then see if you can get curious after the fact when you have a few moments to spend by yourself. See if you can create enough space that you can be curious about what was going on inside of you and what you might have needed or what might have been able to bring you even just a tiny little bit of relief. The key here is to start taking baby steps and to try to stay in a place of some curiosity and compassion. Because if we have an expectation of ourselves to be holding steady all of the time and to never kind of lose our patience when we're still trying to learn these skills ourselves, we are setting ourselves up to fail. So having some curiosity, figuring out how you can take some baby steps. Sometimes you can do that by yourself. Sometimes it takes a little bit of help of reflecting on it with another person. So yeah, so I hope that's helpful. Either way, regardless of whether you're able to hold steady or whether you have a really hard time with it, I hope that you can revisit the feelings and figure out what some of the things that you might need, or how you can have some compassion and give some grace to yourself. There isn't any perfect. And even if you know this information and you're trying your best, you are on the path to towards finding a better way. So last thing, if you are interested in learning any more practical tips for this type of practice, for starting to learn some practices to slow things down and gain some skill and some capacity for staying regulated rather than getting triggered quite as easily. And if you're listening to this before May 23rd, 2024, I have a free webinar coming up that you might be interested in, and I'll post the link to that below. But either way, I wish you well. Thanks for listening.